What's that?
Nothing.
Machado signs with the Padres. Manfred's worried about the negativity surrounding the coverage of baseball and the possibility of a strike as soon as this season. You're watching The Lineup. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As always, I'm Joshua Adams, along with Jeff Matthews. Once again, let's start with the biggest news of the day. Ichiro came in with 7% body fat in the spring training, the lowest on the Mariners roster at 45.
And in bigger news, Manny Machado signs with the Padres.
Yes, he did.
With an absurd deal, in my opinion.
$300 million for 10 years, and there's not a big chance that he actually goes that full 10 years because there's a 5-year opt-out unless the Padres just completely blow everyone out of the water, and this crop of prospects is the best that anybody has ever seen, and this team is good for that entire 10 years. He's opting out at 5.
Yeah, he's going to opt out at 5.
I mean, though you could say, if he's just bad for the 4th and 5th year, he's not going to opt out because that's $30 million every year. But if he's great for those 5 years and the Padres are just kind of a middling team, he might be able to find more money because the ceiling of a salary for a single player might be pushed up even more by then.
But here's the thing, baseball is very inconsistent. We've seen that. We've talked about even Bryce Harper, the other big player that has not signed yet. But we've talked about him and how, his 2015 season was a great season. And then he's had decent seasons. I'm not going to say he hasn't played well, but they haven't lived up to the 2015 season. And I think if you keep going, if he goes to that 5-year mark and he's had one really great season, I think it's probably better off that he stays for himself with the Padres.
Yeah, as far as Harper goes, if he has an opt-out, for whatever reason, I don't think he'll ever take that because I think he will age better than Manny Machado.
I think so as well.
But we want to get to that a little bit later. We're still on Machado. As of right now, the Padres are not a good team.
Right.
They aren't. They're attempting to compete next season, which you can give or take that. And their team will be 70% prospects at that point. I don't think they have a single quality arm in the rotation. They have Tyson Ross. He's good. He's not amazing. So as of right now, they're unproven. They have some decent catching, but they have some decent catching. They have Machado and they have Hosmer. And as far as I know, that's pretty much the only impact players they have. So they're really relying on these prospects to come through.
Well, with prospects, there's always talent to be there. There's always going to be someone coming in and being able to fill that role. And I think with the Padres, with adding Manny Machado to their roster, I think it's going to add a lot of boost in morale in the players. There's obviously a big kind of expectation when a big player comes on your team. And with as big of a player as Machado is, stats-wise, I think he's a great player. But there's also so much surrounding the press with Machado. I think the other teammates of the Padres are going to get behind that, and I think they might have an actual really good season this upcoming.
Yeah, as you said, whenever a really good player comes in, like a Machado or a Harper, it lets the players know this front office really believes in the team.
Right. It's and it's one position, right? So yes, we struggled with this position, but we brought somebody in, we spent the money, we went for the effort, we made a huge deal getting Manny Machado.
As of right now, it's the biggest in American sports history.
Not just in baseball. You said sports
American
history.
Sports.
Yeah.
10 years, $300 million. I did see a tweet that said if you adjust for inflation, A-Rod's is bigger, but it's like, don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So as of right now, it is the biggest in American sports history. But as you said just before we went live, you saw some joke tweet that said the ground floor for the Harper deal is now $300 million. And one penny. And 1 penny.
That's it.
And to an extent, that's true because it sets the floor for Harper, and that might knock some people out of the Harper contention because they'll see that it's $300 million and just kind of go, dang it.
Gotta go.
Yeah, it's like we have a thing, man. We have a thing. It's just.
But here's the thing with Manny Machado signing with a ginormous deal. I can't even believe it.
It's beyond human comprehension how much money that is.
It really is.
His grandchildren will not be able to spend all that money.
It's a very true statement. Yeah. But with Harper now still not being signed yet, does that put pressure on him to get signed? Now, okay, so there's two different ways to look at this. You can look at it from the team's perspective and be like, do we need to go get Harper? Or you can look at it from Bryce Harper's side and say, does he himself in a rush to get signed?
See, he already, could live off of all the money that he's earned through sponsorships.
He's set for the rest of his life.
Yes, he's fine. So he's not, scrounging around for scraps. So as far as the money goes, he could retire right now. He doesn't need baseball as much as baseball said we don't need you, in the fact that they have not signed him.
Right.
So I think the only impact it has had on Harper is that it just kind of sets the ground floor for his deal. He might get less years and more money. I mean, more average annual value.
I think it kind of edges him to get signed. I think part of me believes that now that Manny Machado was signed, he now thinks that he might believe that he's not going to get as big of a deal as he wanted to. Because now there's some teams that just aren't going to be willing to pay that. And so now the teams that do want him are going to be like, well, we want you, but we're not paying you that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Machado goes, the White Sox believed they were the big deal, and I believe they were $250 million in 8 years, which again,
crazy,
beyond human comprehension. Right. Who could ever need that much money? And it's just, you can't. It's kind of silly that we're talking about this. It's like, oh man, he's going to ask for more than $300 million. It's $300 million. Most people don't see that for 5 generations of their family and beyond that. We've seen that the Phillies are looking at Harper, and as of right now, that's who the general consensus is the one of the front runners, if not the front runner. The Padres have said that signing Machado does not rule out Harper, to which I say, sure, buddy, sure. I mean, you said in class a couple days ago that you believed that every team could afford Harper and Machado.
Yeah, big
after
money.
$300 million. That's a big question, and that's a big commitment.
If they didn't want anything else, if some teams, if they didn't want to make any other move during the spring training, didn't want to improve anywhere else, but they wanted Bryce Harper, I do think that every team could afford him.
Yeah.
I do think that. However, you can't just rely on one player. There's a lot. I think every team is looking for more than just putting one player on their roster.
Mike Trout proves that. He might be the greatest player literally in the history of baseball, and the Angels have never really been able to come through with him. So that Harper wants to go to a winning team.
Right.
The consensus was that, the pseudo-consensus, almost the consensus, was that the Cubs were really going to look at him. But then so many things went back and forth of the Cubs have no money. Oh, wait, the Cubs have a lot of money. Oh, wait, no, they don't. Wait, yes, they do. And it just went back and forth. And the ultimate conclusion of that was they didn't buy anybody in free agency. Their biggest signing was Daniel Descalso. So the Cubs aren't looking at him. The Yankees aren't looking at anybody, apparently.
Which I thought was weird. I just think that's weird. How, you have a full offseason and you don't really look at anybody. That was a little strange for me.
Okay, so I pulled up the payrolls for each individual team. $30 million a year for Machado, and that's the base for Harper. The lowest payroll was $71 million last year with the Tampa Bay Rays. So that is, if in the White Sox are just at that $71 million as well. So if Harper goes to the White Sox, which they're the team that's still in it, that's half their salary right now, and that's a 50% increase.
It's a big gamble.
It is.
We talked about injuries happening. We talked about players just becoming not good. Sometimes they just have bad seasons, and it would be fatal for a team to spend that much money on a player and then for this player to just have back-to-back, possibly to back bad seasons and you're not generating that revenue. And I think it's a big gamble. And the Padres took a ginormous gamble.
Padres took it, yeah.
And I believe that it'll pay out. I think the Padres will do well.
Having the veteran leadership of, presumably, of Hosmer and Machado. Machado has those kind of attitude issues, the "I'm never going to be Johnny Hustle" comment, which he did clarify, which kind of made sense. After that, I don't know if you saw it. He said that he's.
I didn't see his response.
He clarified in saying, "I'm not going to be the guy that gives effort to."
Really.
Not happy with Harper on that same scale. I tried to find the quote, but I couldn't find it. He said, whoever it was, there's people that have speculated on who it is. Whoever it was, they thought that it made the team look bad when about every 10 games or so, Harper didn't run out a ground ball, or he overthrew the cutoff man, or he didn't necessarily try on this player or the other. So that is an issue with Harper and Machado, and you can kind of see that in the way they play, and it's to an extent you understand how they get there because they've been told, they're amazing their entire lives, and they get to the bigs and they're getting all this money, so there might not be as much incentive to play as hard as you can.
I think that's a very true statement. I think you hit it right on the nail right there with they've been told that they were great all their lives. Middle school, wow, he's a really good ball player. He's definitely going to play well in high school. High school, wow, he's a really good ball player. Where's he going to go to college? College ball, wow, he's going to make it to the major leagues.
Yeah, Harper didn't even go to college.
Exactly.
He was in the majors at 19.
Which is crazy to think about, how I'm sitting here at 21 years old, and Bryce Harper's sitting in the major leagues at 19 back then.
I was sitting playing MLB The Show when I was 19. So in a way, we were both in the majors when we were 19.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy, and it's kind of, I was always told growing up, kind of have that humble attitude, like you might be really good and you might be very good at something.
Act like you've been there before.
Act like you've been there before. And I don't think Manny Machado and Bryce Harper do that.
I believe it. After the break, more on proposed rule changes, Manfred's media blues, and if we think a strike will happen. Stick with us. Welcome back to the lineup. Joshua Adams and Jeff Matthews with you here today. Rob Manfred said he hates the negativity surrounding the coverage of baseball, and I blame him.
We know, Josh.
Yes.
Anyone who watches this show knows that you blame Manfred.
A little bit.
Rightfully so, in my opinion, with this. And here's the thing. If you're going to be the commissioner of any sport, understand that there's going to be people who don't like your sport. There's people who don't like football, Josh. And then there's going to be people who don't like baseball. And there's going to be people who don't like hockey. The problem that I think Manfred is dealing with, and you brought this up to me, is players, former players, and then people in the media who just talk about it, bag on baseball just because they're not fans of it. And that's when it kind of becomes a struggle. And I can see where Manfred gets upset with that, because it's sometimes people who may not fully understand the sport, and they just kind of talk bad about it. Now, the players, on the other hand, a lot of those players, you mentioned John Smoltz and how he talks bad about the pace of play.
It's
sometimes.
rough listening to Joe Buck and John Smoltz sometimes, because it's almost as if you're just listening to two people complain about how baseball doesn't work right now. And those are the national broadcasts. Those are the people, they're the casual fans' glimpse into the big games, you know, the Cubs versus Cardinals, the Braves versus Phillies, the Yankees versus Red Sox. Those are the big games, and they send Joe Buck and John Smoltz every time just to hear them complain about how baseball doesn't work right now.
Well, and here's the thing: Joe Buck and John Smoltz were both involved with baseball. Joe Buck's father,
Jack Buck.
Jack Buck, thank you. He a big baseball guy, big broadcaster for the Major League Baseball. But back in the 90s, when John Smoltz pitched, the pace of play was way faster than what it is right here. And to play it away, and then to go into and stay in the business and see how baseball has been changed and how slow it has become, because there's no doubt in my mind that baseball has slowed down quite a bit. There's no arguing that it has. I'm not too upset that it has, but if you're John Smoltz and you played it one way and you were taught to play it one way, and now it's being played a different way, I could kind of see where it's rough for that.
See, change isn't always good, and it isn't always bad. As far as the game slowing down, I understand why it has, because people are throwing harder than they ever have, so they need time to gather themselves for each pitch, because they're putting 95% into every single pitch, because they're throwing 100 miles an hour with a sinker that moves that much, as far as Blake Trinan goes.
But a thing to kind of counter with that is how Greg Maddux could paint the plate and not be throwing at 100.
Yeah,
right? That was his famous thing, is that he could throw the ball wherever he wanted to on the plate and not throw as hard. Now, he could throw it as hard as he wanted to, and I'm pretty sure Greg Maddux could probably paint the plate as hard as. But the point is that you don't have to. Strategically, you can place that ball in different areas, taking speed off of it, and still be an effective pitcher.
There are dozens, if not hundreds, of pitchers in the minor leagues that can throw gas. They can throw 100 miles an hour, but they couldn't find the plate with a compass.
They couldn't.
So that's why they're in the minor leagues and not in the majors. The guys that can find the plate and still throw that fast are the elite of the elite, and that's why they're there.
Right.
But as far as Greg Maddux goes, you have guys like Kyle Hendricks now, and I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. There's a pitcher that pitches similarly on the Brewers. But so you don't need that, and Greg Maddux would even tell his catcher how he wanted to pitch by how he caught the ball whenever it was thrown back to him. Just little things like that would speed up the game. But I also don't think it's necessarily important to speed up the game as it is right now.
I think it might. As much as I don't mind the pace of play right now. I don't mind it at all. And I think one of the rule changes that we're going to talk about more about in a little bit is a pitch clock. And getting those pitchers to kind of not take 7 laps around the mound, as our friend Christian Christensen would say. But it's one of those things you have to understand that the generation before us doesn't like slow activities. They don't like waiting 3 hours for a game to go.
See, that's one of the things that in our we're taking a baseball class right now, taught by the wonderful Phil Wood.
Yes, we are.
And he mentioned that the amount of time that the ball is in play is longer in baseball than it is in football. But in football, you can show 95 different replays of the same play to cut out the dead time. But in baseball, you can only show so many replays of a nice curveball.
Right.
So that is one of the things that makes baseball seem slower, but I don't know if it's necessarily important to, this is going to sound weird. Baseball has its niche.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's that important for them to appeal to an audience that doesn't want to watch it. Because you would have to fundamentally change the game in order to appeal to the audience that likes football and basketball, and that's it.
Well, the problem with that, Josh, is I don't know how much you're going to like what I have to say, but one of the things is Major League Baseball is a business run by businessmen who want to make money, who want to sell products, and who want to drive their sales, if you will. I've put it that way. They're going to want to pick up as many viewerships as possible. They want to pick up as many fans as possible to sell the jerseys, to sell the tomahawk chops, to sell gloves, to sell baseballs. They want to sell everything, right? They're just wanting to make money, and that's something that is a kind of a flaw of every sport, not just baseball. That's in every sport, in my opinion.
Can I have a counterpoint to that?
Go for it.
I believe it was in 2017. Yeah, I think it was 2017. Baseball turned a bigger profit than the NFL.
Really?
It's more games.
That is more games.
Yeah, it's more games, so it's more attendance. So you're driving more. I mean, you're just the quantity alone drives up the profit. I mean, the NFL, they're making millions of dollars in every game. But the MLB, they have the quantity that adds up over the season.
Right.
We said we were going to talk about the rules, so maybe we should. One of the things that Manfred is really big about is speeding up the game. So the pitch clock has been added to spring training, and in spring training, they're starting extra innings with a runner on second base.
I disagree with that. I kind of like the pitch clock.
I'm actually the opposite. I will never be for a pitch clock. I think baseball should be governed by how long the sun is in the sky.
Okay.
But as far as the starting runner on second in extra innings, it's during exhibition games, and so the All-Star game and spring training. You know, it's an extra inning game. You're just going to wear out your pitchers. You're just going to wear out your players. You're in there, you know, to throw this specific pitch sequence 4 times, get out, and ice your arm. That's it.
Right.
You have very specific goals in spring training, and you only start ramping it up towards the end and treating it like it's a real game. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
About adding a base runner.
Because the games don't matter. So they're just trying to get them over. I mean, there's a story of A.J. Pierzynski intentionally fighting with an umpire just to get ejected from a spring training game because he wanted to go home.
It is spring training.
It is.
I see what you're saying. And in spring training, I don't necessarily have a bad problem with it, but in actual live regular season games is where I kind of become iffy with it.
And they've said that this isn't necessarily precursor to the extra innings rule changing, because it is that way internationally for the World Baseball Classic, which we could go back and forth on that. But as far as in spring training goes, I don't have an issue with that. What the players do have an issue with is how they're not being signed, and you have some quotes from Adam Wainwright.
I did want to bring it up.
On the possibility of a strike.
So Adam Wainwright talked to...
longtime Cardinals ace.
Yes.
10 years or more at this point.
I think it was
He's been
around
with the Cardinals his whole career.
11, maybe 12?
2006, I think, might have been his first year.
Right. But he spoke to InsideSTLs.com's Tim McKernan, and Wainwright said that it was inevitable that the players will go on strike unless major changes are made to help bridge the widening gap. Now, what gap he's talking about is the real, the pay thought, I guess is how I want to put that, of what the players think that they should be paid and what the owners think that they should be paid. And that's a big, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding going on between the two. The players think that they should be paid a lot more, and that's understandable to an extent. It is kind of hard, especially if these players have families, because I think I like to think of the details. So if they have families, 162 games a year. There's not many off days in that, and you're traveling a lot. So during baseball season, and even the off season, because it's not like your training just stops, and it's hard for these players. And I think they're really wanting to be compensated for that. And then the owners sometimes just don't understand that because they don't really have that problem.
Yeah, the disparity between how much players think they're worth and how much the owners and the GMs think they're worth is all because of sabermetrics. Obviously they don't just look at someone's WAR and go, they're worth this much. WAR is a much more general stat than we use it. It shouldn't necessarily be used as defined as this player is worth 2.3. It's a very general stat because defense isn't necessarily factored into it that much, but that's beside the point. There have been a lot of stories this offseason of players maybe getting a couple calls at the beginning of the offseason, and good players. Mark Reynolds, I think specifically, had had this experience. And they got a few calls at the beginning of the offseason, then nothing for about a month and a half. And then about the same time, 4 or 5 teams come in, give him the exact same offer for the exact same money. And he wound up signing a minor league deal. It might have been with the Rockies, I'm not certain. So that has to be frustrating as a player, because Mark Reynolds is a valuable player. He held the strikeout record for a season, at least. I think Aaron Judge might have broken it for a single season. But he's still a valuable player. He's a good first baseman, and he has a lot of pop in his bat as much as he strikes out. So there are a lot of valuable players. You know, one of your favorite players, Craig Kimbrell, is still sitting there, one of the best relievers on the market right now, top 10 reliever at the very least.
I would even go as far as saying top 5. I think that's how good.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I think, and with that, it's just frustrating for some of these players who have been great ball players. I think Craig Kimbrell is one of the best relief pitchers in today's ball. Mm-hmm. I think, and for some of these players who don't get signed just because of politics in baseball, I think that gets super frustrating. Yeah. And I don't think the players should be punished for things that are going up in the office. Which is probably why a strike is how this is going to end. And it could be catastrophic for baseball, because baseball hit an all-time high when the Cubs won the World Series. And an immediate strike after that could be the end of baseball as we know it. Green light's on the way. Stick with us.
The honors program at Austin Peay started. There was a group of professors who thought, what are we doing for our strongest students? And since then, the program has changed and grown with the university. And now we have over 300 students who are in the program. It's open to students of all majors.
I wanted something that would set me apart from other pre-med students. So I thought the honors program would help me with that. It's pretty easy to make friends here because everyone here is focused on school because they're in the honors program, so they want to get something out of school. And it's just a nice place to come to study. In the classrooms, they will be asked to stand on their tiptoes, is what we say. But the classes are more interesting. They move along a little faster. It's a place where those students can congregate to study, so I think students are better prepared for careers and for life in general through the academic curriculum.
Back with us with Jeff Matthews and Joshua Adams here on the lineup. If you're familiar with the show and saw last week's episode, you might be thinking to yourself, they covered a lot in Greenlight. Maybe they won't have as much to make fun of this time. You'd be wrong.
Commissioner Manfred said recently he hates how negative the baseball coverage in the media has been. It might help if he didn't begin every interaction with the media by saying, boy, baseball's terrible, isn't it?
Trevor Bauer talked about how his character was assassinated by representatives from the Labor Relations Department. Bold move by somebody who's cut his finger open twice on drone blades, harassed a girl on Twitter, and once labeled himself one of the most scientific players in baseball.
Giancarlo Stanton said the biggest difference playing for the Yankees has been playing in games that matter beyond May 7th. Giancarlo, how could you say that? The Marlins were never competitive that far into the season.
All-world pitcher Clayton Kershaw said he won't follow a pitch clock and will simply ignore it. His Dodgers teammate Rich Hill didn't mince words either, saying, quote, "It's ridiculous." Thank you. Love you guys. Favorite pitcher of all time.
Finally, the saga of free agent superstar Manny Machado has come to an end. Yesterday, he signed with the Padres for $300 million for 10 years. He waited a long time to sign. Looks like he'll have to wait even longer to be on a winning team.
The Phantom Menace is a better movie than The Last Jedi.
Joshua has gone off the deep end.
Ratings for the NBA's All-Star Saturday Night were lower than this past season's Home Run Derby. Maybe if they had the hometown kid cheat to win, they would have gotten more ratings. I'm not letting that go. I refuse. It's not going to happen.
Without Manny Machado coming back, the Orioles are looking to compete in the AL East this season. There's no punchline, that's the joke.
Reportedly, the Padres haven't ruled out signing Harper after the Machado deal. We've said it since the beginning. San Diego Padres 2020 World Series champions.
Picada projects the Cubs to finish last in their division this season. It's a shame seeing these small market teams fade into obscurity.
Bryce Harper told a former teammate he has no idea where he'll wind up, and the offseason has been even slower than we think. At least he still has an entirely legitimate home run derby win to look back on.
Carlos Martinez has been shut down after not following the Cardinals' workout plan during the offseason. The major league equivalent of a teenager telling his parents, "You can't tell me what to do," just before he gets grounded.
This year's Super Bowl proved any sport can be boring if you try hard enough. Take notes, Manfred.
Okay, well, it was a good defensive game, but we'll go with that.
No, it was boring.
All right.
Okay, so the best thing was the longest punt in Super Bowl history. That's you're going to call that a good game?
Defense wins championships, Josh.
Old man Jeff Matthews. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our entire production crew for helping us put on this show each week. For Jeff Matthews, I'm Joshua Adams. Bryce Harper cheated in the home run derby. Thank you for watching.